So thank you very much, Lucy. Thank you very much for agreeing to talk to us. We always start with the same questions. Could you tell us who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
I'm Lucy Allen. Where am I from? I'm kind of from nowhere in particular, but having said that, I've probably stayed in this place longer than ever. My home, Forest Gate, East London.
Oh, right.
Love it. And what do? I'm a professional stunt artiste.
Fantastic. And how long have you been doing that?
A long time. So it's, to my shock, every time I say it, it's 34 years.
Goodness me.
34 years
Wow.
since I got onto the stunt register. 1990. Yeah.
Amazing.
And it's just whizzed past, I have to tell you. Yeah.
What was the first thing you worked on?
Well, the first thing I worked on in stunts was Casualty.
Oh.
Yes, which was fabulous because it was my favourite TV show at the time.
Right.
So that was a really nice start, Yeah.
And was that repeat? It wasn't just one episode. You did it quite frequently.
Yeah, I guess so. That was the beginning of a lovely relationship with Casualty for many years. But for the last, say, 10 years, I don't think I've done a job on it.
What was the first Casualty stunt? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. Not just the first Casualty stunt, the first stunt in terms of doing it professionally. That was, I was on a bicycle. I was biking in a country lane. And basically this poor, unfortunate woman had a collision with a HGV vehicle come around the corner. So she didn't see it, and she was in the middle of the road and suddenly tried to get out at the last minute. So my job was literally biking around and disappearing under the cab. At the last minute, camera was in the cab looking down, so it looked like, she'd disappeared. Bang, they put the sound effect on. And so in the story, she ends up having her leg off, I think. But I always say the funny thing about that job was when they did the actual hit with the dummy on a bicycle, they propped it up and everything. The dummy's leg ended up down the lane. So
very, very.
Yeah, it was a bit chilling that moment, actually.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So I did that twice, and that was for a stunt coordinator, Gareth Milne.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember at the end of that, very important day, he just said to me as he got into his Mercedes sports car, he said, "You're a good stunt double. I'll tell the boys about you."
Oh, nice. So
that was nice. That was a nice start. Yeah.
So was it something you'd always wanted to do? And how did you end up getting into it?
It was absolutely not something I always wanted to do. It was something I didn't even really know about.
Yeah.
Stunts. I mean, it wasn't something that was mentioned a lot back in the day, was it really? It was literally a little known profession, whereas now it's a very, very different situation. So, yeah, all I can tell you is that I always loved all that action, on film and TV. And because I became a physical performer, I suppose I began to notice all that kind of action of stunts more and more. I love the professionals, I remember seeing so much stunt action in the professionals, Bodie and Doyle rushing around, skidding cars around and stuff. So I don't know why, but I've got a memory of seeing, I think, 2 stunt people crashing through a window and thinking, damn, I really think I could do that. But
it's amazing.
I don't know, but I was, as I say, I was a physical performer at the time. I was working in circus. I was very physical,
right?
But I wouldn't have thought it was anything, like so many people do. Oh, I could never get into that. So it was pure chance that one of the circus performers mentioned the stunt register to me and said something about the stunt register. I'm like, what's that? And that was really the beginning of it.
And do you specialise? Sorry,
go on.
I was going to say, Lucy, are there sort of people who specialise? So, water, fire, high jumps.
Not really.
Okay.
No, I mean there are specialists, but I don't think most of us aim not to specialise because you want to get as much work as possible as many different fields. In fact, I've met many stunt specialists or people that do come from a very particular background, like top horse riders or whatever, who are always very keen to say, but I do more than just this, you know what I mean? So, for me, I always say I'm a mongrel, I'm no master of anything, mistress of none am I, but I love that idea. I'm sad that I never was a specialist in anything, but I've made it a virtue in my life that I'm not. So as opposed to being really good at one thing, I've aimed to be as good as I can at many different things. And I think that kind of all-rounder thing, I've always kind of had that in me since being a girl at school, winning Champions Girl, for not being the best in every single sport, but being top enough to get the most points to win the Champions Girl or whatever. See what I mean? So,
yeah. Can we just go back a little bit, because you must be easily the first person we've ever spoken to who literally has run away with the circus. Is that right? You before this you were in the circus. So how did you?
Well, I wouldn't say I ran away. I went to an audition at Jubilee Hall.
Little less romantic.
But it still was very unexpected for me to end up in the circus, and I was, I loved the circus as a kid. I was always the kid lying there watching Billy Smart Circus every Christmas, but I'd always been told you can't be in the circus unless you're circus family.
Right.
So I never imagined that I could end up in the circus, but now I kind of look back and think, well, where else could I have ended up? And this is funny. Actually, I went back to I think it was 50 years of the drama department, because I actually did a drama degree at Bristol University.
Okay.
And one of the lecturers who, back in the day had taught me and everything, I remember him looking at me and saying very dryly, "Yes, I heard that you'd gone into circus. That figures." He also said that about the fact that I ended up in Istanbul stripping.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, because the way I got my equity card was going off to Istanbul.
Right.
To become an international striptease artiste.
Goodness me.
Yes, and he'd heard about that as well. I don't know how he knew things, but I remember he said something like, "Yes, I wasn't surprised to hear that you would." So I'm not quite sure what to make of that. But, I only did that to get my equity card.
I see. Well, I think we need to have another episode just on that.
I was going to say, this is brilliant. Yeah. So let's go to Istanbul.
Yeah.
So how long did you do that for?
It was a 6-month standard overseas equity contract. And the thing about that was that it came with a provisional equity card, which that's what I needed to get into equity, to pursue my dreams, make my way to the National Theatre, as I was hoping, into classical acting. That was what I was expecting or hoping I would do. But I'm very happy at the way it turned out, doing more crazy type stuff than that.
What did you enjoy most about Istanbul?
Oh, I kind of fell in love with everything Turkish, I think. The whole atmosphere, the sounds on the street, the smells on the street, there were always people, shouting their wares, and the rumble of these kind of old wooden carts which would have DVDs. There's a lot of rip-off stuff was going on there, they'd have DVDs or handbags or whatever. And I kind of loved I had the whole day, and then I'd go to work, and you were always greeted on the door by the doorman, in their finery. And often I would sit in the kitchen and have supper before all the show started, 2 shows a night. So I got to spend time with some of the Turkish people and eat the Turkish food, lovely. And one time, I must tell you this, one time during the day, because we had the days off, I went out on a boat trip, and we ended up just being on this boat all day, and there was no shade. I got completely sunburnt. I didn't even have a cap. And I've always remembered I turned up at the club that night, and the doorman looked me up and down and said, "Good evening, Madam Lobster." And I still got a photo of me naked that one of the girls took in the dressing room when I'm absolutely red raw. And there was this awful bit, gorgeous bit in my programme when I went into a beautiful arabesque wearing nothing but my G-string, and choker, would go into a beautiful role on the carpeted little stage. Well, you can imagine burnt skin and carpet. Not a great
God.
combo. And as I rolled on the carpet, even though I was in the show, I just went, ugh.
Did you leave skin on the carpet then? Did you end up sort of like...
It was
did you
just
need
the
attention
carpet
afterwards?
on my skin. It was
Oh.
like,
Ouch.
oh, never forgotten it. Never forgotten it. Yes, a memorable moment in my rather unillustrious career as an international striptease artiste. But I got my equity
That's
card.
fascinating.
Yeah.
I got my
There you
equity
go.
card.
How
That
did
was
you,
it.
how did you get into? How did you learn? Did you have lessons, or how did you work it out as you went along? How did becoming a striptease artist work? Copy what the girl on before had done, or how did it work?
No. I have to say my routine wasn't a terribly sexy one, for starters. We had some Hungarian girls that did much more kind of sexy stuff than me. No, the little programme was worked out in London by the bookers with me.
Right.
So we worked on a little routine. They liked the fact I was acrobatic. So I added acrobatic moves and I was doing backflips and stuff like that. So I had quite a kind of cheeky little number. Let's put it like that.
Right.
Then, so clad with my little rah-rah skirt, I did my kind of cheeky acrobatic number. And then the mood changed. The low lights came on and I kind of lost my pillbox hat and lost my little rah-rah sequin little outfit and went on to more luxurious movements.
Amazing.
Fascinating.
So how did you? We're never going to even get to the stunt at this rate. How did you get from Istanbul to the circus? Well, just talk us quickly through that.
Istanbul to circus. Well, I was lucky when I got back. I managed to get my full equity card because in those days you had to have so many weeks to get the full card by landing a job as ASM understudy in a play with Penelope Keith, The Dragon's Tail. So that was a great experience. I was understudying, it was only a four-hander play, so I was understudying an actress called Amanda Root, and we played in Brighton and Richmond, then came into the West End. So I had a full card then. By then I had the full card. I could go into the West End, and I was there for 6 months in that play. And I did actually go on and play the part for a couple of performances. So that was quite a big thing at the Apollo Theatre.
Wow.
So that was, a straight play. But then, as I say, I just happened to see this advert. And because I was still acrobatic, still had that ability, I went in with my acrobatic skills to do the audition and I got the job.
Okay.
So, and then when I was in the Circus Senso, this rock and roll circus company, I learnt all my other stuff, like, I went on to do lots of aerial work. So, found dangling at height suited me down to the ground.
Amazing.
Yes, that thing of strength and suppleness and, jeopardy, a bit scary, great, because as an acrobat, I love that kind of thing of, you do a somersault and the world turns upside down. It was the same thing, you're seeing the world from a different perspective when you're dangling by one knee upside down or whatever. Yeah.
Did it pick up quite quickly? Did you, after starting in Casualty, did you get regular work then, or?
Well, I started in Casualty, but what I didn't tell you was it took me 6 months to get that first job. So
Right.
A lot of us do sometimes say to the young ones, you get, some of them are lucky, they get on and they're immediately working. Well, it's not always like that, and 6 months was a long time, you can imagine, to wait to get that first job. But I did the Casualty job, and then the next thing I can remember was I did get another job, but it was still very, very slow. And eventually I just suddenly thought, oh, for God's sake, I can't hang around waiting for this to happen anymore. I saw an advert to go off to Bodrum in Turkey to do massage. And I was a qualified masseuse by then. So I thought, bugger it, I'm off to Bodrum. I want an exciting life. I don't want to be sitting here waiting for the phone to ring. So I was literally about to do that when I got a call, and I went on to the Richard Gere film First Night. And I only went on for a few days, but that job, as we find out in Stunts, it extended. They never got round to our stunt. And before I knew it, you know, I was coming up to the time that my plane was about to go, and I had this big decision to make. I'd even rented out my flat to someone else because I was going away for 6 months. Well, you can imagine it didn't take long, and I just knew I had to.
Get up there! Roll when you hit the ground!
So I did to make my excuses to go and stay in a friend's flat because my flat had been rented out. And I kept on with the job on, you know, the Richard Gere film First Night. Yes. And got to jump out of the carriage as it went through Burnham Beeches at speed. Yeah, there were 3 stunt women. We all had to jump out of the carriage. So it was a long wait, but it was a good stunt once we got to do it.
What was Sean Connery like? Was he not in that film?
No,
I thought he was in that film.
Oh, yes, he was. No, you're right.
I thought so, yes.
Yeah. But he wasn't in the Burnham Beeches kind of. It's a big sequence in there. Yeah, no, I know. No, never got to meet him.
Did you meet Richard Gere?
I didn't meet him, but I always remember when I first saw him. I was walking around the corner, you know, in my sacking cloth outfit, you know, long dress, probably getting muddy, and just came across him. He was on the horse coming up to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's Richard Gere, which was a ridiculous response because I grew up with, well, not film stars. Well, yes, one film star was in our family, actually. But, you know, I grew up in a world where I was meeting actors all the time because my dad was a TV director, producer. Uh-huh. So it was very weird that I had this response at seeing Richard Gere. But I think it's because, you know, the big American star is something else, isn't it? You know, and I'd never come across one like that before. But it was a rabbit in the headlights type moment, but I think I got over it after that. And he was lovely, actually. I only heard great things about him.
You mentioned that you had someone who was, I guess, in the trade in your family. So tell us a bit about that, and also about you mentioned your father's work as well.
Yeah. Well, my uncle Lionel was Lionel Jeffries. So, yes. So he was actually my dad's cousin, but to us kids, he was Uncle Lionel. And I'm looking in my office at this wonderful photo of me with Lionel, who's talking to me as a little kid, because we got to, in my costume, because myself and my siblings ended up in one of his films, the classic, The Railway Children.
Wow.
Yes. So we played Perks's children. So my first screen role. Yes.
You were in The Railway Children?
Yeah, the original one. Not showing me age or anything here.
With Jenny Agutter?
Yes.
Wow.
We played Grandmother's Footsteps with Jenny Agutter and the Railway Children in one of the lunch breaks on the green at Elstree Studios. Yeah, all those years ago. I'm always praying that I'll get a job on Call the Midwife, because wouldn't it be wonderful for me just to meet Jenny Agutter again and say, I was a little kid. You know.
That's one of those films that means so much to many, many people, isn't it?
It's just a classic.
Precious film.
Absolutely beautiful film. And we always laugh at the fact that every single time, well, definitely myself and my sister, if we ever watch it, we always cry at the end. You know, Daddy, my daddy. It just gets you every time.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It's just something. Bernard Cribbins was playing our dad, you know. But my own dad, he was an actor, but went into directing, you know, and ended up specialising in situation comedy. So that's my kind of background. My mum was an actress as well. They met in the theatre. Apparently he was a flyman, the family story, you know. He was out of work actor working as a flyman. He used to look down on the stage and see our mother, you know, looking very efficient and suave as a top stage manageress in, you know, the London theatre world. So, eventually they ended up on a job together. He was her ASM. So
what's a flyman? Sorry, pardon my words.
With doing the sets going up and down.
Oh, okay. On
the ropes, yeah. So a good kind of job if you didn't have an acting job, you might pick up a bit of work in the theatre doing that. But eventually they worked together on The Silver Whistle, and the rest is history. Yes. But yeah, Dad had a 25-year career, you know, doing shows like On the Buses and Love Thy Neighbour, Two's Company with Elaine Stritch, The Fosters with Lenny Henry. Kind of discovered Lenny Henry. Saw him in a club and thought he was amazing, and yeah. So lots of stuff.
So your dad discovered Lenny Henry?
Well, we liked it. You know, he was the first person to put him on TV. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
Again, I keep wishing I would work with Lenny Henry, but that never happens. You don't seem to work with the people you want to work with. You know that you've had some.
Yeah.
Apart from one person, actually, Zoe Wanamaker.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Zoe Wanamaker was someone I always wanted to meet because her dad, Sam Wanamaker, you may have heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
He was the force behind, you know, the Globe Theatre.
Yeah.
Well, my dad was in the theatre with him, worked for him. He had his theatre company up in Liverpool and stuff. Yeah, so they worked together for many years. They were friends, and they gave us their crib. And I always thought it'd be lovely to meet Zoe and say, we were in the same crib, we had your crib. And eventually that actually did happen. It did happen. And it came to mind because we mentioned Bedford. You asked me, have you done any stunts in Bedford?
Yes.
Because
So
that's where you live, that's right?
Well, yeah, Andrew and I went to school there, so we're sort of from there. We don't live there now, but yeah. We met at school in Bedford. So tell us.
Well, that's where I got to double Zoe. We stayed in Bedford, but we were actually filming out outside of Bedford, where they had maybe a skydiving place there.
Oh yes,
a tunnel.
Thurley. Yeah, I know.
That's it. Yeah.
The airfield. Yeah.
That must be where it was. There was an amazing place. They had a climbing wall and a surfing place, a fake surfing.
Yeah, it's
thing.
fun.
So,
it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
It was in that area where we had our set, which was the most amazing set. And I was doing a fight, basically. So I was there, stunt double for Zoe Wanamaker, choreographed this fight. And then, you know, obviously did some bits for Zoe, like being thrown in to some pile of whatever, you know, thrown into boxes and God knows what. Yeah. So I got to meet her, basically, which was really nice.
Fantastic. You mentioned to me when we spoke before about St Albans. You told us you got thrown in some boxes for Zoe Wanamaker in Bedford. But
Yes.
Where did you get thrown in St Albans?
Yes, St Albans. 2 jobs that I've done there. One was a very, very long time ago, and I was thinking about it before today because it was for Mark Boyle, who's no longer with us. He was a top stunt coordinator at the time, and I hadn't met him before, but he rung me up and said he was a stunt double on this job. Don't ask me what it was. He said, so I was fairly green at the time, and he said, yeah, I need you to abseil through a window. You happy with that? I'm like, yeah, great. Yeah. And off I went to the town hall. But what makes me laugh when I look back at that job is I thought I was abseiling through a window, and in my head I imagined an open window. You see, I hadn't quite got my head into stunts at that point, because when I got there, I wasn't going through an open window. I was crashing through a glass window. And it was actually quite a tricky job. But, yeah, because basically if I got it wrong, I was going to smash my head against what's the top of a window?
Lintel.
Yes, exactly. So I had to get it just right to swing down and manage to kick my way through and fly through and land on a crash mat into this window, into the room. So yeah, that was like, okay, it's an actual window. But the job went well, and I remember feeling really pleased, you know, wow, yeah, that's a real stunt, I really done it. And him saying very dryly, and I said, how was it? He said, well, it didn't look like much on camera. He said, all they could see was your feet coming through, because I came in quite flat.
Yeah.
I was left thinking, oh God, did I do something wrong? But if I hadn't been fairly horizontal,
Yeah.
there was the danger I was going to smash my head on. And now, with the benefit of years and years more work, thinking about it literally today, I just think, well, actually, surely the camera angle was wrong there.
Yeah.
You know, it was not your fault, Lucy. You were kicking through, and they must have had the camera right in front, so all they saw was the feet coming through, whereas from a side angle they would have seen that whole thing happen. So yeah.
And on that, Lucy, I'm guessing there's sort of fairly high level of performance with a lot of your stunts, right? So, like you say, making sure the cameras have got the right angles, but then also how you are. So, if you're going to fall off a horse, for example, then it's, you have to sort of be, I don't know, flamboyantly falling off a horse, if that makes sense. It has to be you have to look like you're falling off a horse.
Yes.
How does that work? I mean, is it multiple takes, or do they sort of give you some direction as to how you should fall off a horse in this case?
Well, just that whole thing about performance, yes, that is so important with all of our stunts. And sometimes people think, you might be a champion high diver or whatever, but can you perform? It's another kind of skill. So for me, it just helps me so much that I have that acting background. So I'm using all those kind of acting muscles or all that in me to do whatever that thing is. I'm not just falling down the stairs. I need to know, is she pushed? Is she scared? To give me some kind of impetus to do the stunt. And that helps me so much. That's how I tend to approach stunts. I mean, some of it is purely technical and the camera's 5 miles away, but for me, sometimes as well, if I think if something's a bit tricky and my mind's trying to work out where the body's going to go and how, I just think, just act it. Just think about that moment and just feel that moment, let the body organise itself, which is something I learned a long time ago. Sometimes if you stop a movement halfway, that's how you get hurt. Just kind of go with the flow, believe in yourself, and get propelled into the action from whatever place, whatever story you're telling, whatever that character's going through. And I don't think everyone does that, but that's how I tend to work. But yeah, we can't just if you're doing a stunt, it's got to have a bit of flair to it. We want people to,
of course, yeah,
to get that excitement. But if you're on the horse, you've been knocked out. I'm knocked out. Bang! You're just going to fall off without throwing your arm. Just let it happen. Just be loose, and So there's different. Each stunt you're going to perform differently.
Yeah, fascinating.
Lucy, you've done so many TV programs, so many films. It's very hard to choose. But what I've done is I've just taken 5. And can I ask you to tell us what you did in them and any memories you have of it? So I've chosen 5 almost at random. We'll start with Titanic. What did you do in Titanic?
A lot. Okay. I did a lot in Titanic. I wasn't stunt double. I was just ND stunt, so that's nondescript. So I went out to Mexico to work on the poop deck sequence when the whole of the boat rises up and people start falling down. Uh-huh. And so that's why I was there. And I was lucky enough to be chosen very last minute. It turned out in the end because someone wasn't quite happy with the rigging or whatever. And I was suddenly put on the wire and did the big fall from 200 foot on a wire. Did it twice, I think. So really when the whole thing rises up to 90 degrees. So that was a big moment for me. And also getting to be the drowned woman floating. I got my own moment as the drowned woman floating, which I'm so lucky about because not only have I got my own moment, but for me it's very bearable because I've got all my hair swilling around under the water, so you can't see my face. If I could see my face, I would have hated it, but you can't see my face, so I can kind of, and it looks really beautiful, and it's quite a tragic moment. It's the drowned body of a girl just turning in the water, and it's, my claim to fame.
Well, that falling from the sort of propeller into that's one of the most striking bits of the film, isn't it? For that, when they all fall at the end into the
The
key.
grand
Yeah,
shot. Yeah, the grand shot, and looking down, you see people starting to fall.
yeah, horrific.
Yeah, no, honestly, that was a very, very big. We always said the scale of Titanic was so huge, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Next one, Braveheart.
Oh, Braveheart. Oh, damn, Braveheart. It was such a shame because I was one of the stunts that were thrown off the battlement to hang by my neck.
Yeah.
And I worked on my partner to do that was the great Terry Forrestal, who was a character and a half. And he said to me, Luce, the thing is when people get hung, their tongues hang out.
Oh.
Their tongue gets propelled out. So I reckon, you should do it like that. So I did. So I got dropped off from the battlements, and it was like a rope drop, and you feel that the rope extend, and at the end of it, you go into I'm hung action, and I stuck my tongue out like anything and swung in the breeze, and unfortunately the whole of that scene was cut.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It was such a shame.
I don't remember that scene. All right.
One of the stunters said a friend had seen it in a copy that was out in somewhere in the Far East.
Uh-huh.
They had women and children being thrown off as well as guys. Little Kiran Shah, he did it. He was out on Titanic as well. He's a little guy who does stunts.
Uh-huh.
So, it made it very horrific. And I think they thought it was too much. But if you watch the rest of Braveheart, you think, well, why was that too much?
Yeah.
But you never know. You see, this is the business. You never know whether you're going to make the final cut or not.
Brilliant. Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, Shaun of the Dead. All I did was faint. But I like that moment, because it was such a brilliant, brilliant film. Just to have a tiny moment. I think it was at the beginning of the film, you just see little things that things are starting to go wrong in London. And this woman just faints by the bus stop. He sees her fainting as the bus goes past.
So that's you. I'll have to rewatch.
Yeah, you'll see it. You'll notice it.
Look for you. Okay, we need two more. This Skyfall.
Sorry?
Skyfall, James Bond film.
Oh, Skyfall. Oh my God. It's always a dream to work on a Bond film.
Yeah.
And at least I was in a slightly better outfit because, as I said, when I first got into stunts, and I'd loved Bond films, professionals, all that kind of stuff. And when I did work on my first Bond film, which was GoldenEye, I was so excited, but then rather crestfallen when I was given my outfit. I was playing a kind of Russian woman with snow boots, carrying a plastic bag and a horrible hat, through the Russian street. It was not my idea of a Bond girl. So Skyfall, it had improved. I was in a rather nice suit. I think it was a suit. I was a court reporter, and I was literally in the melee of all the action when there's a shootout between Bond and the villain. And I was just there sitting where they had little squibs going off, little explosions, getting away from the bullets of the baddie, that kind of thing.
Right. Yes, I think I've seen that clip.
Yeah.
And the last one I'll bother you with, but we could be here for the rest of the day.
It's quite a long list now of credits, isn't it?
But only because I've never actually seen it, but I must be the only person in the UK who hasn't. It's The Crown.
Oh, The Crown.
TV series, The Crown.
Well, The Crown, I was delighted to stand in for the stunt coordinator just for one day to help on a little scene when Margaret collapses in her bedroom. So I was actually in the role of stunt coordinator on that day, so making sure it was all matted out, safe for her to do the fall. I did the line-ups for camera, that kind of thing. I mean, Leslie Manville is who I'm in awe of, an absolutely superb actress, and also physical as well. And I'd worked with her before on Maleficent for a motion capture shoot of the Little Fairies. And so I knew from when I went to do that day's work, I knew that she was quite physical and capable. And sure enough, she said, I'm fine doing this, Lucy, this kind of collapse. I'll be fine. And it was great because I was like, yeah, I know you will, because I reminded her we've worked together before. So I had no doubts that she would do a fine job, which of course she did. Yeah. Yeah. It was a real dream to work on The Crown for me, because it's a fabulous, show. It's been amazing.
So, Lucy, obviously, there's a big canon of work. What is still out there for you? So, if there was a production that you could work on, what would you really like to get your teeth into?
I mean, I honestly think, if you'd asked me before, I'd probably say The Crown, wouldn't I? I mean, that was a dream to work on The Crown. I mean, any shows that I particularly myself enjoy working on would be great. I mean, there are times when I am desperate to work on something, like I was when Harry Potter started, because I'd read the books. So I was like, I wish I could be on that. And in the end, it happened. That day happened, and I did get involved, and I carried on working on Harry Potter from The Goblet of Fire onwards as a Bellatrix stunt double. Another film that I was desperate, when I heard 24 was coming to London, oh my God, I was beside myself. And I, in much more way than I've been about anything, I think, before, because I'm number one top action show, isn't it? I mean, 24 has been incredible.
Yeah.
I've watched the whole thing from start to finish, not once, but twice. And I just kept thinking, could I contact the stunt coordinator and just say, is there any way? And I just thought, no, I don't do that. And I would compose it in the morning. I would think, shall I just text it? And I didn't. And finally I got the call, and I did just one night shoot. And when I told Mark Mottram that story, how I'd been so keen, he said, oh, Luce, you should have told me earlier. Maybe I could have got a bit more work on it. And I remember when I got to see Kiefer Sutherland, he said, I'll show you, here's Kiefer, because now he knew I was such a big fan. And I went, oh, he's really small, isn't he? Sometimes it's not so good to see your heroes. But so I guess there must be another show like that at the moment. Happy Valley would have been great to have worked on that, wouldn't it? But I'm most of the time I'm just I take every day as a bonus if I'm asked to work. I have to accept I'm one of the older stunt women now, and the fact that I'm still working, still doing stunts, is just fantastic. Doing a bit of stunt coordinating as well, but I do love to be out there performing. Still like throwing myself around, basically.
I'm sorry if this is a question you get asked a lot and you're bored of answering it, but I must ask, sorry. People always want to know about when things go wrong. Have you ever had any mishaps, things that haven't worked out, or injuries?
I am very lucky injury-wise. I mean, really lucky, I think. My stuff like that has mainly been, obviously issues of wear and tear with the body. Obviously, the odd pull, the odd bruises. I mean, my husband always says I'm never happy if I don't come back with loads of bruises after doing a job. It's like, yeah, look, I suffered from my art, man. That kind of thing. And I'm used to all the bruising because in the circus, those ropes, they may look very soft, but I can tell you they ain't. So, yeah, so fairly much in one piece. The most serious day I ever had was when a high fall went wrong. But we don't like to talk about these things and stop people. But yeah, I did end up at the Royal Free Hospital having X-rays through my mouth. So that was not a good day. But I did walk out of the hospital at the end of the day. I might have felt like a bus had gone through my chest, but I was so lucky. My guardian angel somehow saved me on that day. I was doing a more complicated fall. And the irony was, if it had been a higher fall, I would have got away with it. But I did the rehearsal, everything was fine. But on the second rehearsal, they wanted me to hold the position for longer, and I kind of lost time to land in the airbag in a nice, flat, open position. So that's what happened. I went in an extreme position. Apparently I was screaming. I've got no recollection of that. But that's really good because the air was getting out of my lungs. And as I say, I survived it. So,
what was that for?
I think it was called Man Woman.
It's a film or TV?
It was a TV thing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but not a great day. One that one tries to not remember. But something's going to happen. You do all these stunts. There's going to be a day. And I literally remember lying on the floor once the airbag had been taken down, lying there thinking, as I was in pain and my eyes shut, going, it's finally happened. It's finally happened to me. It's like, oh dear.
What would be your most impressive, the ones you're most proud of, the most extraordinary stunts you've done?
Definitely myself and Tina Maskell going off the cliff for the very last moment of peak practice, 65 foot into cardboard boxes.
Gosh.
Yes, that was a big one. Jane Eyre, that was interesting because it was at night, so I'd never done a high fall at night. What else comes to mind?
So the big falls.
Yeah, big falls. That's pretty awesome when you're on the parapet, so to speak, making that leap of faith, as I like to call it.
Yeah. After you've done it, and they say, "Sorry, got a hair in the gate. Can you do it again?" Does that?
That hasn't happened with the high falls. Thank God.
Good.
Although the thing is, you do it. You have this incredible adrenaline rush. You do the big leap of faith, as I said, and then of course you're just pumped up. You're desperate. I'll do it again. You want to do it again, and that. But once the adrenaline's lost the body, that whole feeling changes. It's amazing what power that adrenaline can give you.
Yeah.
I always say, let's face it, most stunt people are adrenaline junkies. We do like that challenge, and that buzz that you get from, sometimes it is literally the old saying, face your fear and do it anyway. That's often what we're doing in stunts, and it's this adrenaline that I always say allows us to be maybe a little bit brave for a moment, Because I'm definitely not a brave type person at all. The family would laugh about it. I was the kid that would go, "What do I say to the man in the shop, Mum?" So maybe stunts is a way of harnessing one's fears in a way.
What's it like for you watching films that you've been in and TV and stuff like that? Are you sitting there waiting for your moment?
Yeah, I can literally get quite. You always feel a little bit nervous,
Yeah.
Oh God, is it going to be there? Is it going to be any good? Oh God, I can't bear to watch, that kind of thing. It can be like that. It can also be terribly disappointing, if you're not in. The worst experience I got like that was I did the death of Bellatrix, and that was a big thing because although I was involved with a stunt double to Bellatrix for many years, there really weren't that many stunts, there really weren't. And finally, I got to do a stunt when she was killed by Molly Weasley, at the end. And we did a big day of jerk backs. I was being hit by the one, and I was being pulled up into the up high into a curtain, and I kind of fell down the curtain onto the crash mats. And we did 10 jerks. I mean, it was a lot to do in one day, and I was really excited that I would finally have a moment in the Harry Potter films, posterity. And went to the Castle Crew screening with that kind of little bit of buzz, and I knew where it would be in the film. And we come up to the bitch fight between, Bellatrix and Molly Weasley. And just as it was kind of starting, I just suddenly thought, oh, I bet they're not going to do it. I bet they're not going to show it. I don't know why then, up until that moment, I thought it would be in. I just suddenly had this inkling, and sure enough, it wasn't. She just disappeared into black paper.
Oh.
In the Deathly Hallows, a lot of them just disappeared into black paper,
Yeah.
So there was, yeah.
Oh no!
I was absolutely gutted.
Oh no! That was Helena Bonham-Carter, was it? That was.
Yeah.
That's who you've been working with.
Yeah.
So tell us just a little bit more about those, because again, it's one of those films mean so much to so many people. Tell us a little bit about working on those films.
Well, as I said earlier, I was on the side, desperate to work on it, thinking, oh God, because as well, when the film started coming out, they were beautiful, they had obviously been done with so much love. There was excellence there, and I just thought, oh, damn, if only I could be involved. And then finally, that day dawned. I suddenly had a call out of the blue from Greg Powell, the stunt coordinator, and he asked me whether I was any good at diving. Lucy, are you any good at diving? And the stars had aligned because I'd just come back from doing a dive trip to the Maldives. And so I was like, well, I've just been diving out in the Maldives, Greg. I've been doing 2-3 dives a day. He said, that's good enough for me. Come to the Enfield tank. We're doing tests. Harry Potter. And so that's what happened. And that's where I met David Holmes, who was the brilliant double of Dan Radcliffe. And we were in that tank together for a few days doing tests. And then because I did the tests, I ended up being part of the underwater shoot at Leavesden Studios, where they built a whole underwater tank. And that still stands out as one of the best, most enjoyable shoots I've ever done, because I was being paid to float around in warm water. But also there's something for me magical about working in a tank, that play of light on the water, you know. And the dive team were great, dive services. There was great banter, you know, with everyone floating in the water. And then I was doing things like taking Dan Radcliffe down, giving Harry Potter his glasses. I mean, it was just a magical job. 2-3 weeks on that shoot.
Is that where they sort of play an underwater game?
Yes, it's one. The try was a tournament, and they go into the lake. Yeah. So that was amazing. And then, you know, luckily, very, very luckily, I was chosen to be the Bellatrix stunt double. So I got to wear the sexy outfit for years, you know, the black leather corset. And yeah, I did a few stunts, but very few, to be honest. A lot of sitting around on Harry Potter, but at least it was a beautiful set to sit around on. When there was a set, of course, a lot of it was green screen. But for instance, the final battle, you know, Hogwarts, out, all of us fighting in the courtyard. That was amazing, with these dead bodies of tarantulas everywhere, these, you know, the giant spiders. I am an arachnophobic, yes, and Stuntman was scared of spiders, so I found that a bit spooky. But, you know, it was amazing. Yeah, I always felt so lucky to be a part of it, you know.
Yeah.
And to get to know people, you know, also in the crew, like Stephen Wolfington. I just worked on something this year, and he was there and came up and said hello to me, and, you know, stuff like that. He's a top director. Stuff like that, really nice. Yeah, I've been around quite a long time. I'm now in this business.
It's done some amazing things, extraordinary. Have you ever thought about writing it all down? Have you ever thought about making a book of all of your incredible experiences?
Someone recently has been telling me I should do that, so we'll see. I mean, I must say, some of the stunt guys have written some wonderful books. I haven't read them all, but I've read some, and it is true that no stunt woman has written a book yet.
Well, there you go then.
And you know, I do these talks all about my life in stunts, and sometimes I'm asked that question. And recently someone said, yes, you should do it, and then you could sell your books when you do your talks. And that seemed like a very good idea. But where to begin? I mean, where to begin when there's so much to say, you know?
Guess you'd just do it chronologically and have a chapter for each big film, or I don't know. People would be fascinated, wouldn't they?
You'd somehow have to choose. You tell me.
Too much to edit out. I think it would be a great book anyway.
Thank you for the encouragement.
Absolutely. There is a film, isn't there, about a new version of The Fall Guy coming out?
Yes. Right? Buzz, big news. Yes, they're bigging up stunts, and I think all the stunt community are very excited and thrilled that Ryan Gosling is, you know, standing up to say the kind of things he has been saying, you know, to big up the stunt community, because, you know, it is true. We are the unsung heroes of the film industry and heroines. Yeah. I always say our job is to make them look good. You know, that kind of is the job. Yeah. But, we've always been a bit passed over in terms of recognition. So maybe the tide is turning. And I honestly do think this film is going to be part of that. It'd be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff.
Lucy, it's been riveting listening to your career. It feels like there's probably another 1,000 hours of content in there. What a fascinating life. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Great to meet you.
And you.
Thank you ever so much, Lucy. It's been so kind of you. Really appreciate you giving us your time.
My pleasure.